Dear students, welcome to this session on the consonant sounds in the RP English. I'm Dr. Shanavas Patupara, Assistant Professor of English, Government College, Mankada. In the previous video, we saw how a vowel was defined, and we also distinguished the vowels and consonants. Just to recapitulate the points, vowels are those sounds in the production of which the air escapes freely and continuously, whereas in the case of consonants, there is a blockage of air or there is a narrowing of the air passage leading to friction. So this is how we define and distinguish vowels and consonants. So in this session, we will look at consonants and the consonant sounds in detail. When we talk about consonants, already we have seen that there are 44 sounds in English, in which 20 are vowels and the rest, that is 24, are consonant sounds. So in order to describe each consonant, we are looking at 5 criteria on the basis of which the consonant sounds are classified. The first one is airstream mechanism. In the case of English, it's very clear that English language makes use of the pulmonic aggressive airstream mechanism. This was explained in the previous video, so I'm not repeating that. So the air that is coming out of the lungs is being made use of in the production of all English sounds. So in the case of consonants also, this is not different. And the second point is the state of the glottis. The state of the glottis decides whether a sound is voiced or voiceless. This was also explained in the previous video. If the vocal cords remain together, when the air escapes, it produces vibration, leading to the production of voiced sounds, as we find in b or g, okay, j, etc. Whereas in some cases, in the production of some sounds, the vocal cords will be wide apart. So when the air escapes, it does not produce vibration, leading to the production of voiceless sounds, as in s, p, k, etc. This was also explained in the previous session. And the next point is the position of the soft palate. The position of the soft palate decides whether a sound is a nasal sound or an oral sound. The distinction between nasal sounds and oral sound can be seen from this picture. So as I mentioned, position of the soft palate. So this area is called the soft palate. As you can see here, this is an area where I'll take the pen. So this area, this is called soft palate. So here it is open so that the air can escape through this oral cavity. Therefore, this is an example for nasal sound. Here, see that this oral cavity is closed here at the lips, and the air escapes here through this nasal cavity only. Therefore, this is an example for a nasal sound. Whereas if you look at this sound here, this soft palate, this area is called soft palate. This area here, this area has been closed, and so the air will not escape through this nasal cavity. It only escapes through this oral cavity. Therefore, it is called the oral sound. So in the case of consonants, we can find that only 3 sounds, m, n, ng, are actually the nasal sounds. They are the nasal sounds. The rest of them are oral sounds. So that is also a point we have to understand. The next point is the articulating organs or points of articulation. There are many organs of speech, or there are many points of articulation that also vary depending upon the consonants and different consonants, and accordingly consonants vary one another. So we will look at that in detail today. One more thing is the manner of articulation or the stricture involved. I told you that, in the case of consonants, there is a blockage of air. So the nature of blockage may decide, may create a difference among the consonants, because in the case of some consonants, the air will be completely blocked, then it will be suddenly released. Sometimes it is completely blocked and then it is slowly released, or sometimes it is blocked in one way but the air escapes sideways. So there are different ways of articulating a sound, and the stricture involved in the production of in the articulation of the sounds, that is also a matter which we will discuss in the succeeding part of this session. So today in this session, now we can look at the articulating organs or the points of articulation. The articulating organs or points of articulation. Here we are looking at which articulating organs are involved in the production of the consonants. So the first one is labial sounds. So labial sounds are those sounds in the production of which our lips are involved. Okay, so the labial sounds can be classified into two. Basically, one is bilabial sounds and the next one is labiodental sounds. So bilabial sounds, as the term indicates, we know that our both lips are involved. Okay, in the production of some sounds, for example, when you say p, both lips are involved. When you say b, both lips are involved. When you say v, v as in water, okay, when both lips are involved. When you say m as in man, we get both lips involved in it. Okay, so therefore they are called bilabial sounds. At the same time, we also have got labiodental sounds. Again, it is self-explanatory, because labio again means lips, related to lips, and dental means teeth, related to teeth. So both lips and the lower of teeth is involved in the production of some sounds, as in f as in fine, or v as in vine, love, river. So in all these sounds, what we find is the the upper lips as well as the upper lip and the lower of teeth is involved. Okay, so that's called that is what we call the labiodental sounds. And now we move on to the next sound, that is dental sounds. That is also connected to dental sounds. Means again the term, as the term indicates, our teeth, row of teeth are involved here. Maybe both rows of teeth are involved. For example, when we say the word think, as the first sound, think, or when you say this, that, there. So all the first two sounds with you, th sound and the sounds. These two sounds are dental sounds in English. In the production of which, we can see when you say think, what happens is, both rows of teeth are involved. Okay, and now we can come to the next sound, that is alveolar sounds. So alveolar means, we have already discussed these organs of speech. We have this alveolar ridge. Alveolar ridge is, the area which is just under the teeth. It's also known as teeth ridge. Okay, just near the upper of teeth. Okay, so this alveolar ridge is involved in the production of some sounds. The tongue is touching this area. For example, when you say the word t, you can see it, when you say the word t, or when you, as in tin, tan, or d as in dog, n as in kneel, l as in little, s as in sea, z as in zoo. So we find that the upper row of teeth is involved. Okay, you can just pronounce it, you can feel it, the tongue is touching. In the case of first three sounds, four sounds, you can see the tongue is touching the teeth ridge. T, d, n, l. Whereas in the case of s and z sounds, the tongue does not touch, but the tongue actually, sorry, the tongue, okay, comes closer to the upper alveolar ridge, that when the air escapes, it produces a friction there. S sound when it's a S sound or when it's a Z sound. We will explain that in detail. Anyway, these are the sounds in the production of which the teeth ridge is involved. So therefore, it is called alveolar ridge is involved. Therefore, it is called alveolar sounds. And now we can look at let me turn it off the one second. Post alveolar sounds. So what happens in the case of a post alveolar sound? See, in the case of this post alveolar sound, what we find is that the tongue is raised towards the hard palate. Hard palate means in the area just behind the alveolar ridge. If I can show you, I will see. See, this is the teeth ridge, and the area just under that is known as the hard palate. So that's a post-alveolar area where the tongue actually is coming very close to that. Okay, in the case of post-alveolar sounds. The sound in English is R as in write, record, R sound. Okay, so that's an example for post-alveolar sound. And when we come to the next sound, we can see the palato-alveolar sound. See, post-alveolar, after that the palato-alveolar sound in English. So in the case of palato-alveolar, what really happens is that, the tip of the tongue is coming very close to the, the teeth ridge. That means that it's coming very close to this teeth ridge area. At the same time, the front part of the tongue is coming very close to the palatal area, near the hard palate area. Okay, so the tongue movement is actually are having of these two movements. One is the tip of the tongue is coming very close to the alveolar ridge. At the same time, the front part of the tongue is raised towards the hard palate area. So they are called palato-alveolar sounds. And the two sounds we have in English are, as I've shown here, J sound. Je as in measure, pleasure, genre, okay, treasure, okay, je sound, and the other one is sh sound. The only difference between these two sounds are je is a voiced sound and sh is a voiceless sound. Sh as in sheep, she, sheep, okay, these two sounds. So these are the two sounds we have in English as an example for palato-alveolar sounds. And the next sounds we have in English is palatal sounds. In the case of palatal sound, what really happens is the front of the tongue is coming very close to the hard palate. Okay, the front part of the tongue is coming close to the hard palate, but it doesn't touch there. And the example we have in English is je as in you. Okay, so in the case of these sounds, what we find is the tongue is the front part of the tongue is coming towards the very close to the hard palate. Okay, you as in you, okay, or as in yam, okay, yes, that's a sound. Okay, and we move to the next sound in English. They are velar sounds. Velar sounds, as the name indicates, what we find is the tongue is coming very close to this velum, the back part of the roof of the mouth. The back part of the tongue is coming very close to this. So therefore we have the velar sounds. For example, k. When you pronounce the word k, you can really feel it. Okay, k as in king, keen, or when you say g as in jug, okay, then dick, or when you say the word ng as in sing, you can really feel that the back part of the roof of the mouth is involved. Okay, so therefore they are called velar sounds in English. And now we move to the next one, that is glottal sound. So glottal sound means the sound that actually originates from the glottis. Okay, the only you can, if I want to show it, that this area, this is called the glottis. So from this the sound directly comes out. For the only sound we have in English is h, as in hit, hat, okay, happy, that's a sound. So that's an example for a glottal sound in English. So the next point is the manner of articulation or structure involved. See, let's see how each sound, each consonant is actually articulated. Let's take the first one, that is plosive. What are plosives actually? So plosives are those sounds in the production of which what really happens is the air is completely blocked and then it is suddenly released. There is an explosion, something like that. There is a plosive. It's also known as stop. For example, let's take the example of a p. When you say the word p, the air is completely blocked, the lips. P, then suddenly released. When you say b, the same thing happens, right? Or just the word t, what is happening is tip of the tongue is touching the teeth roots, t, then suddenly released, t, d. Or when you say k sound, actually the back part of the tongue is touching the velar, the back part of the roof of the mouth, and it is suddenly released, k, as in king, okay, queen, etc. Okay, then these are the examples for that one. Then talking about these plosives, there are two plosives. One is incomplete plosives, other one is nasal plosive. So incomplete plosives are those sounds in the production of which if a consonant, if a plosive is followed by another plosive, sometimes the plosive may not be complete. For example, k, we know that it's a plosive, but when it comes in act, as I've shown here, act, k cannot be completely released, because before that it has to close again, the air has to be accumulated again for the articulation of the next plosive, that is t. So we don't say act, we say act. So there is an incomplete plosive there, or sometimes it is followed by what is an affricate, like t. So even the word picture, what is happening is a ch is an affricate. There is a complete blockage of air and slow release. That is actually affricates. So ch is an affricate. So in picture, the word also we find the same thing. Okay, then nasal plosive means, for example, if a plosive is followed by a nasal sound, again the plosive will not be complete. For example, the word sharpness, sharpness, what happens is, p, the air is completely blocked to say sharp. But when it's a sharpness, the air actually escapes through the nasal cavity, because immediately it is followed by a nasal sound. So that is an example for a nasal sound, nasal plosive. Okay, so these are the two type of plosive we have in plosives. Okay, remember that's also known as stop. And now we come to the next point, that is affricates. See, affricates are those sounds in the production of which air is again completely released, blocked, as we have found in the case of plosives, but it is slowly released. See, in the case of plosives, they are suddenly released, but in the case of affricates, there is a complete blockage of air, but it is slowly released. The examples I have given here as j, as in jam, jam, okay, j sound, and also ch sound as in chair, cheer, etc. So these are the two sounds. You can just pronounce it, you will understand. Ch, j. Air is completely blocked, then it is slowly released. So they are called affricates. Okay. And now the next about j sound, probably I may mention that if j comes what to say immediately after d, usually d will be usually silent. For example, in the case of bridge, we say bridge, but it's actually bridge, smudge, etc. Okay, adjectives, that's just an additional information. And now we move on to the next sound, that is fricatives. See, when we defined consonants in the beginning of this video, we have said that consonants are those sounds in the production of which there is a complete blockage of air. Then, or sometimes there is a narrowing of the air passage leading to friction. So that is actually the second point is here. Fricatives. Fricatives are those sounds in the production of which there is no complete blockage of air, but the active articulator and passive articulator are coming very close, that the space is very narrow, that when the air escapes it leads to friction. If it is not sufficiently narrow, it would be a vowel sound, right? Because it is very narrow, that when the air escapes it produces a friction, and therefore it becomes a consonant. So consonants, here the fricatives are those sounds in the production of which there is a passage between the active and passive articulators are very close, are very narrow, that when the air escapes it produces friction. So they are fricatives. For example, when you say where the s sound, s, when you say the word s, the tip of the tongue is almost touching the teeth ridge, but it doesn't touch there. It's coming very close to that. S. When you say z sound, also the tongue is coming very close to the teeth ridge, but it doesn't touch there. So the passage between the teeth ridge and the tongue is very narrow, that when the air escapes it produces a friction. So that's a fricative. With, when you say with, what's happening is the teeth, the air escapes between two rows of teeth, as in with, thank you, etc. Or when you say f, as in fan, again between lower lips and upper row of teeth the air escapes. Okay. Right, the tongue is coming very close to the hard palate, right, record, but it doesn't touch there. Okay, air escapes with a friction. Or when you say pleasure, same thing happens, pleasure, measure. Or sh sound as in ship, she, h sound as in hat, we have the same thing. There is a narrowing of the passage that it produces a friction, right? And now let's come to the next one, that is trill or roll. See, in the case of trill or roll, what happens is the articulators are brought together closer, and it taps there more than one time, one or two times. It keeps on tapping on there's an intermittent tap on the hard palate, for example. In Scottish English, for example, a r sound as in sorry, a girl, sometimes in some colloquial expressions you have this trilling effect. Or sometimes if r comes between a vowel sound, between two vowel sounds, as in sorry, hurry, we have the same effect. Or if it is coming after the sound th sound, for example thrive, okay, three, we have the same trill or roll effect. That's the next point. And then lateral sounds. Lateral sounds are those sounds in the production of which actually the tongue is touching the teeth ridge here, but the air escapes sideways. For example, there is only one lateral sound in English, that is l sound. So when you say l as in little, love, the tip of the tongue is raised towards the hard palate, but the roof of the mouth, whereas the air escapes sideways. Okay, so that's an example. And also you may note that there are two type of l sounds. One is clear l and dark l. For example, when you say the word lull, L-U-L-L, lull, the first one is a clear l sound. The second one is a dark l sound, lull. People, the last sound is a dark l. When you say the word love, light, the first l sound is a clear l sound. Okay, when you say help, the second sound, the l sound is a dark l sound. So that's just an additional information you may just take note of. Now we move on to the next sound, that is nasal sound. See, nasal sounds are those sounds in the production of which what really happens is the oral cavity is closed, but the air escapes through the nasal cavity, as we have already explained. M as in mean, n as in need, ng as in sing. Okay, in all these three sounds, we have the air is escaping through the nasal cavity, the oral cavity is closed. Okay, in English we have only these three nasal sounds. Okay. So the next point is approximants, where we have frictionless continuance, means certain sounds which can be prolonged. For example, the word r as in that can be prolonged. That's a frictionless continuant. In some varieties of English, such a sound does exist. And then we also have got semi vowels. They are also part of these approximants. In the case of semi vowels, what really happens is that the tongue is touching, the tongue is coming very close to the roof of the mouth, but it doesn't touch there, and there is a sufficient space in between for the air to escape. So given the nature of this sound, it can be rightly called a vowel sound. But it occurs usually in the environment, in the phonetic environment of a consonant. So therefore it actually acquires the characteristics of both a consonant and a vowel sound. Therefore it is called a semi-vowel sound. So in English we have two semi-vowels in English. We know that one is y as in you, young. Then we have the sound called v as in water, when, where, etc. So these are the two sounds we have got in English as semi-vowels. So that's all, and now we move on to the description of each sound, each consonant, on the basis of these points that we have already discussed, the 5 criteria that we talked about. That means the airstream mechanism involved, that we already said it's always pulmonic aggressive airstream mechanism in the case of English. Then state of glottis, which will decide whether whether a consonant is voice. If the glottis is open, it will be a voiceless sound. If it remains together, when the air escapes, it vibrates, therefore it becomes a voiced sound. And then the next one, the position of the soft palate, which would decide whether it's an oral sound or whether it's a nasal sound. And there's no confusion about it, because we have only 3 nasal sounds in English: m, n, ng. Okay. And then the articulating organs. Articulating organs means which are the organs which are involved in the production of the sounds. Okay, the points of articulation. It can be labial, it can be dental, right? It can be alveolar, it can be velar, it can be glottal. So these are the points of articulation. And then the manner of articulation. Manner of articulation means the organs which are involved in the way it is involved in the production of the speech sounds. So accordingly we have plosives, fricatives, affricates, then trill or roll, lateral sounds, etc. So accordingly we can just try to label each consonant in English. So let us take the pairs first. P and B are pairs. Why I call them pairs are because there are reasons. Because one of the reasons are this, they can be clubbed together because they are produced in the same way, except that one is a voiceless sound, the other one is a voiced sound. So let's take P sound first. It's a voiceless bilabial plosive. Voiceless means the vocal cords are wide apart, so that when the air escapes, it produces vibration. Okay, it does not produce vibration, therefore it's a voiceless sound. Bilabial means both lips are involved there. Okay, therefore it's a bilabial sound. It's a plosive because there is a complete blockage of air. Then there is a sudden release, voiceless p. When you say p sound, actually what's happening, there's a sudden release of it. Okay, so as in the case of pin, pan, these are some of the examples. And again, b sound, when you say the words b sound, it's a voiced sound because vocal cords remain together. When the air escapes, it produces vibration. Therefore, it's voiced. Bilabial because both lips are involved. It's a plosive, as in big, bush, etc. The next pairs are t and t. See, in the case of t sound, what's happening is the tip of the tongue is touching the roof of the mouth. When you say t sound, you can pronounce it as t, but the vocal cords are wide apart, therefore it's a voiceless sound. It's alveolar. Alveolar means a teeth ridge is involved. Tip of the tongue is touching the teeth ridge, therefore it's an alveolar plosive. It's a plosive. Again, there is a complete blockage and sudden release, so it's a plosive. A voiceless alveolar plosive. Tap, tip, etc. These are some of the sounds we have in English. Then similar manner is there in the case of d also. A manner of articulation is same, voiced, but it is voiced alveolar plosive, as in dance or talk, etc. Then we come to the next pair, that is k and k. In the case of k, it's a voiceless velar plosive. Voiceless, again vocal cords are wide apart, does not produce vibration. Velar means the back part of the roof of the mouth is involved. Velum, the back part of the tongue is touching the back part of the roof of the mouth, therefore it's velar. It's a plosive because there's a complete blockage, sudden release. So voiceless velar plosive, as in king, keen, okay, all those examples. Can, then g, again it is produced in the same way, except that it is voiced sound, voiced alveolar plosive. Then we come to the next one, f and v. F is voiceless labiodental fricative. Voiced labiodental fricative. See, it's voiceless when it's a f, as in fan, fish, okay, fight. What's happening is it's a voiceless. Labiodental means when you say f sound, actually the lower lips and upper row of teeth are involved. Therefore it's labiodental. Fricative means there is no complete blockage. The air actually is passing through the narrow passage, leading producing a frictional noise. Therefore it becomes fricative. Okay, voiceless labiodental fricative. V sound, as we find in voiced, that's only difference. Voiced labiodental fricative, as in van, was, etc. Then the next pairs are th and the sounds. Th sound, as in it's again a voiceless sound, and it's a dental fricative. When you say th, see, both rows of lips are involved. Okay, sorry, both rows of teeth are involved there, right? So it's a voiceless dental fricative. There is a sufficient gap, for narrow gap. When the air escapes through that narrow gap, it produces friction. Okay, therefore it's a fricative. So voiceless dental fricative, as in with, think, etc. Thought. Then the sound is again produced in the same way. The only difference is it's a voiced one. It's a voiced dental fricative, as in that, there, then, etc. Then the last two pairs are s and z. Not last two pairs in this page, in this slide I mean. S sound, that's a voiceless alveolar fricative. So it's voiceless. Alveolar means it is the tip of the tongue is coming very close to the teeth ridge, but it does not touch there, so the air escapes through that narrow passage. Therefore, it's a fricative, voiceless alveolar fricative. Z, as in see. Okay, these kind, there are plenty of words we have it. Okay, sip, etc. Z is again produced in the same way, but only difference is it's a voiced sound. Zebra, zoo, grazing. Okay, z sound. Then the next sound, two pairs are sh and j. Sh is a voiceless palato-alveolar fricative. It's a voiceless sound. Palato-alveolar means the tip of the tongue is actually raising towards the this one, the alveolar area, whereas the front part of the tongue is raised towards the hard palate area. And again, but it does not touch there, so the air escapes with a friction. Therefore, it's a voiceless palato-alveolar fricative, as in sheep, rush, she, etc. Okay, ship. Then next sound is j sound. That's the only difference is it's a voiced palato-alveolar fricative, as in treasure, measure, genre, garage, etc. Then the next sound is h sound. That is voiceless glottal fricative. That's a voiceless glottal fricative. Glottal fricative, because glottal means it comes from the glottis. Directly it comes from the glottis. It's a fricative again because there is a narrowing of the passage, so it produces some kind of a friction. H as in hot, hiss. Uh, the next sound is ch and ch. They are also pairs. See, ch is actually a voiceless palato-alveolar affricate. It's a voiceless sound. Vocal cords are wide apart. The air escapes without vibration. Palato-alveolar, again, as we have already said, the tip of the tongue is raised towards the teeth ridge. The front part of the tongue, this area is called, it's coming very close to the hard palate area. It's an affricate. Affricate means, the air is completely blocked and then slowly released. Ch as in chair, church. Okay, cheer, this ch sound, which the last sound. Same way, j is also produced, but in the case of j, what's happening is, the air, sorry, it's a voiced sound. It's a voiced palato-alveolar sound, as in jam, gist, okay, all those kind of sounds, j sound, okay, jump. One thing you may just note that in the production of this j sound, usually if it comes along with the d sound, naturally that is not pronounced. D will be silent. For example, in the case of bridge, b, okay, h, we don't say h. D is silent because if it is followed by this j sound, h, smudge, okay, all these sounds, if it falls in the same syllable. Anyway, these are the yeah, we have got three more sounds. They are three nasal sounds in English. M, N, Ng, as we have already said. M is a voiceless bilabial nasal sound. It's voiceless. Bilabial means both lips are involved. When you say M sound, it's a nasal sound, means the air escapes through the nasal cavity. N sound, it's a voiced sound. It's an alveolar sound, means when you say N, the tip of the tongue is touching the teeth ridge, right? So the oral cavity is closed, air escapes through the nasal cavity. Therefore, it's a voiced alveolar nasal sound. Example is need, name, whatever that begins with N sound. And Ng sound, that's a voiced velar nasal. It's a voiced sound because vocal cords remain together, it vibrates. Velar, the back part of the roof of the mouth is involved. When you say ng sound, the back part of the tongue is touching the roof of the mouth and the oral cavity is closed. Air escapes through the nasal cavity. Therefore, it is a voiced velar nasal sound, as in sing, young, the last sound. Again, remember that this sound will not come in the beginning of a letter or a word. Okay. So that's all about this consonants. Yeah, we have got some more sounds. Y and V sounds. Y, V, I told you they are semi-vowels. The first one is U sound. That's a voiced palato semi-vowel. U, yes. These are examples. V sound. That's a voiced bilabial semi-vowel. Water, wind. Okay, that's an example. Water, wind, where, example, etc. Then r sound, it's a voiced post alveolar frictionless continuant. Okay, as we have already discussed that one. Then l sound, as in voiced alveolar lateral sound. Alveolar means the tip of the tongue is touching the teeth ridge, but the air escapes sideways, so it becomes a lateral sound, as in little, laugh, okay, light, etc. So that's all about today's session. So in this class we talked about consonants, the 5 criteria on the basis of which we can describe each consonant, and accordingly we have described 24 consonants in English now. Thank you.